Now, police in the central region have begun investigations into the sale of subsidized outboard motors by some executives of the governing NPP there. This follows a complaint lodged by MC from Fantaman against the constituency second vice chairman David Awotri, who has been indicted in an investigative report for using his late uncle's fishing canoe to buy the subsidized outboard motor at 10,000 cedis and selling it off at 16,000 cedis. Freelance investigative reporter Manasseh Azuria when he went undercover in the central region and reveals how some of the outboard motors got into wrong hands.
Some fishermen in Elmina in August this year said party executives of the governing NPP had hijacked the machines and were selling them at prices higher than the subsidized price.
No, 100 about on them. This is the Elmina fishing harbour in the central region. Some fishermen I've spoken to say business has gone very bad because of the activities of pair trawlers. They therefore find it very difficult to meet their operational cost and therefore welcomed the decision by the government to subsidize the machines they use for fishing. However, they say having access or getting some of the machines to buy at the subsidized cost is a problem.
These allegations are widespread in the central region, but are often dismissed as untrue. I put a team together to go undercover to ascertain the veracity of these claims. The team came across people who were willing to sell the government-subsidized outboard motors in Abuesi in the western region, and Mori, Briwa and Apam in the central region. Prices quoted ranged from 14,000 to 16,000 cedis. At Briwa in the Mfantsman municipality, we were led to the constituency women's organizer of the NPP, whom our sources said had some of the machines for sale. When we met her, she said she had sold hers, but directed us to a man who acted as a middleman for another seller of the subsidized machines. The middleman led us to where the machine was and insisted that the cost of the machine was 16,000 cedis and nothing less.
This is a 40 horsepower Yamaha outboard motor my team and I have just bought from one David Awotri in Briwa in the central region here. These outboard motors have been subsidized by the government of Ghana and are meant to be sold to the fishermen. But some members of the governing New Patriotic Party have hijacked them and are selling at a higher price than the price that is supposed to have been sold to the fishermen.
That machine belonged to the NPP constituency second vice chairman, David Awotri. When the sale was sealed, we requested a receipt and he wrote it on an NPP notepad. When I called David Awotri later, he told me he had used the details of his late uncle's canoe to secure the subsidized outboard motors, even though he wasn't a fisherman.
The
canoe is faulty, so it had to be repaired. The money used to buy the outboard motor was borrowed with interest, so we decided to sell the outboard motor and repair the canoe.
When I drew his attention to the issue, the Central Regional Minister, Kwame Nadanka, said he had instructed the Municipal Chief Executive of Mfantsman to act on the matter.
Once this came to my notice, immediately I got in touch with the Municipal Chief Executive for him to give me the background to that. And he did indeed say that this person who has come on the radar, that he's got one and has decided to sell it over and above the subsidized price, was indeed given one. But he was given one meant for relative fishermen. So I instructed that quickly bring this report to the police and let the police go and pick him up.
Meanwhile, some fishermen in the central region are calling on government to publish the names of recipients of the outboard motors it distributed to fishermen across coastal regions. This follows the investigative report you just heard from freelance investigative journalist Manasseh Azuria-Wuni, revealing the Mfantaman constituency second vice chairman of the governing New Patriotic Party sold an outboard motor subsidized by government to fishermen at a higher price. All right, so my colleague in the Central Region, Richard Kojonyako, attended that press conference organized by the fishermen. We'll be bringing you that story shortly and more. Do stay. Thank you for staying here on News Desk with me, Benis Abubeidulansa. I will try and bring you that story of fishermen in the Central Region calling on government to publish the names of beneficiaries of subsidized outboard motors that were distributed to fishermen in coastal communities. Away from that, residents of Kwao say that women and children are living in fear for their lives as a result of rampant shooting and violence in the area by land guards. The residents of the town in the Ewutu Senyawas district of the Central Region claim a pregnant woman had a miscarriage while another is in the hospital due to shock caused by a recent shooting incident by land guards. They want the Inspector General of Police to intensify police patrols in the area. Now, one of the pregnant women, Mary Koloko, who claims she got a miscarriage, says she's very traumatized and can't even sleep in her house. She spoke to Adom News' Kofi Ejay.
Ena mama saadi ni sisi ne banzana moja gumi pa
I have been bleeding since they caused the commotion. They fired several shots. The police even advised that I find somewhere safe because the guys are dangerous. They can even kill me. I have been bleeding. Look, they even destroyed my husband's car. They broke our doors. It is no longer safe for me.
Now, Chief of Ewutu Kwao Nai Kofi Atre says residents can't go to their farms because the land guards keep terrorizing them.
IGP Ombra Nomashanye. Now, Obia Fanusa or your hene, Ewaha, Debia, Etuo, Okwasa Sukra, or Wusro. Ono, also a person, Ono Agara Langat for. Need to first know what to say, Obeto, a true Bicasa, and Aquairo, and a Aquairo, and a second, then they would to a two nipa. And the best IGP. Na Ombra, Nomashanye. No, now, or he be a new Miana, because I mean, I'm your hero. Minam your hero, or Nibisi, or your Hibio Kwamana, or Bois, IGP, Pa, Ombra, no Mayer, and a gown. So, or Himwana, I come home. You for no Odupon, or Hiete. On him, no, on Mijano, into a part that will be in your way. So, says your only pass or your hene. Say, Upo to Sukwa, no, what is it in Yamano? Or the motors, Ukobia, what is in Yamano? Or say, or your friend, Atopi. Atopi, only Mono, no baby, only Mono, baby, also. Oh, Miss Sam said that Topino, or friend saying, or friend name, one chamber, Topino, and Siena, only more. How do you at the team or at the Ebino said, okay, phone to go. What do you want to go? Unama, Usro, me or Hinicra, maybe call the crowd, Miss Rowe. I want my motor for small boy say, friends, cross.
So you had that chief of Kwao Nai Kofi Atre. What he's saying there is that there is a certain man claiming to be a chief in the area. He says that this man is leading the land guards. He also claims this man is a police officer. And he was speaking to my colleague, JoyNews correspondent in Kaswa, Kofi J. What he explains is that the land guards have been using motorbikes. They've been going on sprees in the community. The residents can't go to their farms. They're living in fear. You heard earlier a woman who claimed to be pregnant but lost her pregnancy due to shock after these land guards attacked her home looking for her husband. And she explains the ordeal that she went through. In fact, JoyNews reached out to this police officer who is being accused of holding himself as a chief, and they claim he's not a legitimate one, and they claim he's also the one perpetrating violence in that community. You know, he says he will not respond to those accusations. But what you see in your video right now is that incident in which the woman who claims she was pregnant lost her baby. That was a shooting incident, and the police came into the town to restore calm and enforce law and order. So these visuals you're seeing are of that particular incident and what occurred on that day. We'll try and get the police's response on this and what's being done to the call by residents who say they're living in fear for their lives. Now, the Audit Service has written to Parliament explaining its inability to submit the 2019 Auditor General's report on time. They say this is due to the COVID-19 pandemic, despite provisions in the Constitution that the Audit Service has up to June to submit the 2019 report. The service has exceeded that by 4 months. The minority at a news conference claimed the delay is an attempt by the Akufo-Addo administration to cover up corruption. But Speaker of Parliament, Professor Michael Quay, told MPs the Auditor General has communicated to the House the delay is due to COVID-19.
Honourable members, for further information, I have received a letter from the Auditor General, which I referred appropriately to the two leaders, which states that it reminds it refers to certain delays in submitting audited accounts to Parliament, which are the subject of some comments. It states in clear terms that the delay is not deliberate in any way whatsoever. With the arrival of the COVID, several institutions, including their office, were adversely affected as known to the public, and that the office will continue to fulfill its constitutional duties. Copies have been made available to the majority and minority leaders accordingly, and we will take note.
Let's speak to our parliamentary correspondent now, Joseph Opoku-Gakpo, on whether the minority is satisfied with this response. Hello, Joseph. What has the minority been saying about the Speaker's revelation?
It sounds that they are not exactly satisfied as far as the responses from the Speaker are concerned. You recall that this entire conversation began with a press conference led by the minority leader, Haruna Idrisu himself, at which he made a number of allegations, including claims that the decision by the President to order the Auditor General to actually go on leave is how come we are seeing this situation resulting, and that the government doesn't want its corrupt activities uncovered in the third 2019 Auditor General's report. The indication I'm getting from the minority is that the leadership is studying the third letter that had actually come from the Audit Service to the Parliament of Ghana, and that the leadership at the level of the minority will respond in due course. But the point they make is they don't see any specific timeline as far as when the Auditor General hopes to submit this particular report is concerned. And they're drawing attention to the fact that it wasn't exactly a specific letter that sought to address this concern coming up at a time before the third breach of the Constitution happened, as far as the timeline when the submission of this third report is supposed to be done. So they're raising all these questions and asking why the audit service didn't communicate this challenge before the breach of the said provisions in the Constitution, which is back in June and delayed in all of this. But the indication is that the leadership of the minority will be responding in due course, but they find these explanations coming in the letter in question very much unsatisfactory. All
right, Joseph, quickly just tell us what to expect in Parliament today. It only resumed sitting yesterday.
There are a number of things on the agenda that the House will be looking at, including some loan approvals that the Finance Committee chairman will be bringing reports on for the House to go ahead and approve. The House is also beginning work on various legislations that before the House. We are expecting that the report of the Finance Committee on the legislation having to do with anti-money laundering will also be coming to the House for the necessary approval. And it's expected that today being the main sitting day, right after a lot of the MPs went to file their nominations yesterday, a lot of them will be in the chamber today to get business done.
Thank you very much. Joseph Opoku-Gakpo is our parliamentary correspondent. Let's head back to the central region now in Kaswa, where residents in the Ewutu Senya town of Kwabonze are calling on the IGP to intensify patrols in the area. They accuse a certain police officer of leading a gang of land guards to terrorize residents there. Adom FM's correspondent Kofi J joins us with more on this. Kofi, so the residents are accusing a certain man who happens to be a police officer. You tried reaching out to the man for a response. What did you get?
He failed to talk to us. We called him several times, but he failed to respond to our call. So as I'm speaking to you now, we have not reached the man to speak his side of the story.
All right. Explain to us this particular community. What do the people predominantly do, and how are the activities of these land guards affecting them?
Ewutu Kwabonze is a farming community. Population over 1,000. They are all farmers, especially tomatoes and cassava farmers. So that's their main activities, or their main job. And for the past 1 month now, land guards have been terrorizing them, and they are even failing to go to their farms. Yesterday, they all mobilized themselves, and they were at the Chief Palace. They are afraid to go to their various farms because when you go, you see these land guards are with guns, cutlasses, and on their motorbikes going around. I mean, roaming about their farms and the entire community. So they have been also firing guns, and the situation is very serious. And they have been reported the matter to the police, but they are a little bit chieftaincy matters in this land guard activity. So sometimes the police also are afraid to involve themselves in, because maybe one person might think that you are in support of other person. The man they are accusing him is a police officer working at the headquarters. So the police officer, the district police commander of our corps and the Kaswa divisional police corps, they are all afraid, to involve themselves into the...
Okay, we'll let them speak about that for themselves, on why there seems to... the problem seems to linger. But in Kaswa in general seems to have a problem with land guards.
Yes, and Gomwa. Kaswa, it's linked to Gomwa East. Ewutu Senya East, Ewutu Senya West, and Gomwa East. They are all in the same area. So the land guards have dominated all these constituencies. And the only police commander who was able to fight this land guards was the former COP Kufu Dampare. Then he was the director of operations at the Ghana Police Service. He was the only police officer, police commander who survived land guards. But after the operations, and they transferred him. So apart from that, Kaswa and its environs nowadays is very serious, and majority of Ghanaians and developers are afraid even to go to their various land to develop. So the situation is very serious here.
Quickly, before I let you go, Kofi Eje, we have some 61 days to the elections, and Kaswa and some communities in the Ewutu areas have been identified as hot flashpoints or hot spots for violence. Tell us more about that.
Yes, and you see, when it's this thing, all these land guards, belong to political parties. They are being followed. They are being, I see, both MPP and NGC.
They are alleged to be supporters of the parties.
Allegedly, yes. So sometimes it's very difficult for even some of the police officers to arrest them. If you arrest them today, the next day they will grant them bail. So if we don't beef up security during the election, I'm not a prophet, but something might happen.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. Kofi J is Adom FM Central Region correspondent, just giving us details of that press conference that was organized by chiefs and residents of Kwabonze, asking for the IGP to intervene in matters of violence perpetrated by land guards in the area. This is your election headquarters. It's 61 days to election 2020, and despite President Akufo-Addo's admonition to voters to reject independent candidates, Member of Parliament for Fomena in the Ashanti region, Andrew Amankwa-Esiama, has filed his nomination to contest or to seek re-election as an independent candidate. His decision comes after refusing to contest the party's primaries following claims of discrepancies in the voter album. If successful, the MP for Fomena will be the first independent representative and the second non-MPP candidate for the area after the NDC won the seat in 1992. Love FM's Nanaya Ojima visited the constituency, and here's his report.
The incumbent MP contested the voter album for the NPP's primaries in court after internal process to rectify supposed anomalies proved futile. Mr. Esiama withdrew from the NPP parliamentary primaries after he lost legal action, leaving Philip Ofori Asante to run unopposed. The MP has since filed nomination to contest the seat as an independent candidate, automatically denouncing his membership of the NPP. Some constituents are excited about the move. One of them is former NPP Communications Director, Seth Odro.
People have realized that he needs to be maintained to continue his good works he has started. The choice of an MP depends solely on the constituents. No one else, no regional chairman, nor regional campaign team can determine our MP for us.
They accuse the constituency chairman, Akwesi Anti Asamoah, of scheming to ensure successive MPs serve one term.
With the inception of Chairman Akwesi Anti into office, everything has changed. All MPs who have come after Honorable Afrifa had only one term mandate, which is 4 years. Honorable Abu Bansra, 4 years. Honorable Atabuafo, 4 years. There was an attempt to give lawyer Esiama also 1 year term to experience say. The reason given by constituency chairman and his executive has always been non-performance. However, with regard to the current MP, Honorable Esiama, he has performed so creditably.
But the NPP is not perturbed. Party chairman Akwesi Anti Asamoah says there is no hidden agenda.
Chairman Kosintima will be anchor one term. Said the man will be perception.
I have no agenda to remove MPs after one term. As youth organizer, I followed and campaigned for the late Honorable Afrifa, and he went for 3 terms. Abu Bansra took over after his demise. I single-handedly convinced the party members to let him do another term, since his first was just 2 years. Atabuafo contested him and won. Atabuafo also lost his next bid to Honorable Esiama, who worked with him at KMA.
One term, Atabuafo. On 18 months. For
JoyNews, Nanaya Ojima reporting.
We're still on election-related matters. The United Front Party has held its National Congress in Kumasi with a promise to make local languages compulsory for teaching and examining students in school. Leader of the party, Nana Jenim Boateng, observes the current practice of teaching in English has become a barrier, he says denies many of the chance to pursue their dreams. Prince Appiah was at that Congress and manifesto launch of the UFP in Kumasi. Here's his report.
The education sector over the years has become a focus for policy intervention by all the political parties in their manifestos. Leadership of the United Front Party say local languages must be prioritized in Ghana's educational sector. Nana Ajenim Boateng is the flag bearer.
No, the most painful thing in this country is the language barrier. How can a Asante boy, they will tell him he did not qualify for English, so they will not permit him to do a medicine. How many of our hospitals, when you attend a patient who come and say, doctor, my tummy, doctor, my waist or my head, they will speak in their local dialect. So we will make English a choice. Our language has been barrier to us, and I don't think we should continue being in the mental slavery. It's about time we emancipate ourselves from the mental slavery. We must show our original identity as a Ghanaian. We have many tribes in this country. We need to produce medical doctors in Frafra, medical doctors in Nzima, medical doctors in Gan, medical doctors in Sehi and Asante. And they can do it better than, most of the medical doctors. They can't even understand the local dialect where they have posted him or her. So we have a problem with our education system.
He spoke at the National Congress and manifesto launch, where he was popularly acclaimed as flag bearer. Mr. Ajenim Boateng says he will clamp down on corruption in his first year if he wins the election.
We are suffering under this present government. They have stolen our money. As soon as we resume office in 2021, we shall retrieve all the monies, and we will use those money to build roads. We will use those monies to build quality health care and better education systems.
On agriculture, the UFP says it will create a special board for vegetable production that will take the form of cocoa board. Mr. Ajenim Boateng believes this will ensure the sector gets the necessary resources to especially stop the continuous importation of tomatoes from landlocked Burkina Faso.
Most of the times, we have concentrated on only one crop, and we have a cocoa board. Under United Front Party, we are going to create another board, like Tuba will get their board. We will have a vegetable board. What is the difference between the Cramen of Ghana and the Burkina Faso? We have a quality weather, we have big rivers, we have forests, we have everything. Why should we still proceed importing tomato from Burkina Faso? Enough of that.
Prince Appiah reporting.
Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is beginning a two-day tour of the Western region today. My colleague Nathalia Kwanzaa joins us live with more on this. And Ina, tell us where the Vice President is now and what he's expected to do.
Yes, Benny. So the Vice President right now is in the Wassa East constituency, precisely at Tobiase, where he's meeting a number of chiefs and the people of the Wassa East constituency. This is a campaign tour to talk to the people to seek their mandate for the 2020 election. He's also expected to commission some projects and then pass on for some projects in the Western region. From here, he would be moving to Jomoro, where there will also be a number of chiefs and people meeting him. And then from there, he will move to the Nzima East constituency, where he will pass on for the LPG bottling plant in Axim. Later, he will depart to Tafa, and then tomorrow he would continue his tour here in the Western region. Currently, he has arrived, and he's meeting the level of chiefs in the Wassa East constituency.
Tell us the mood of those who have gathered to receive the Vice President.
There are a lot of them, a lot of residents here. They are all looking so cheerful. They've all lauded the president. You see them with different placards with some inscription like, "Thank you for free SHS, thank you for NAPCO, cocoa farmers are grateful," among others. And then you have the PWDs here. Apparently, they are going to give some sewing machines and other equipment to persons with disability.
And that's why we see that man seated on his tricycle dancing. I was just about to ask you that, whether there was a special occasion for persons with disability. But we'll leave it here. Ina Thalia Kwanzaa is our correspondent in the Western region, telling us what the Vice President's itinerary will be as he tours the region. You're watching News Desk with me, Bernice Abubedu-Lansa, on your most credible news source, JoyNews. Parents of a sick KNUST SHS final year student who died after being left in the care of his peers in school are demanding that government makes public findings of 2 committees tasked to investigate the circumstances leading to his death. Sam Richards, a final year business student of the school, complained of severe stomach ache but died later at the hospital after being left unattended for 3 hours on campus. A video of him groaning in pain in the arms of his colleagues while his teachers looked on attracted public uproar. Authorities are yet to publish the findings of 2 committees set up by the regional minister to investigate the matter.
I've always been telling my wife that Leonard is resting in the arms of the Almighty.
It's been 4 months since the passing of one Leonard Richard Sam, a student of the KNUST Senior High School. We are here to speak to the parents to understand their frustration and how they've been coping since the passing of their beloved Leonard Richard Sam. Mother of Leonard Richard Sam still mourns her son, described as brilliant and exceptional by his peers. Sam, a final year business student of KNUST Senior High School, 7 July 2020, after suffering stomach pains for more than 3 hours without proper medical care. His mother, Comfort Bedu, shares the pain of losing a son who had barely completed school.
Because I'm saying, na asem no esie enso nyankopon na ne kurakura me nke bi kura nkasa abire no ke bi anka me kura nka me da honom efise se ye bo wayi kidin kura na me tese wasi me yamu gye me pram me ti kanu asi na me yamu ahye me ti chese me ni ahotokura me da me ntimi na up till now me nsa da aduane mu kura me yamu timi hye me na mayi me se fra aduane nim efise ade ne sie na ye call interview no ye nti hwe mfa ho ana yese obi anka hwe nkyere ye na yakura na ese ye dia sedama mo kese efise ade amokura ma ye no me ho adwiri me se ye te wa mo se ese ye be hwem se de mo mpomtie ni se de ade ni se ye no kura ne ma eko efise mo di amoko ye no anu no obi a mareho no na chese ye de ye titititi ho saa ni ye di ni saa.
Committees set up to investigate events leading to Sam's death submitted their report to the regional minister Simon Osei-Mensah on the 6th of August 2020. Father of the deceased, Edwin Sam Sr., says the family has had several engagements with the committees, but are yet to be appraised with details of these reports 3 months after they were presented to educational authorities. Edwin Sam Sr. wants government to at least make the findings of the committee's report public.
His absence is a huge loss to us. Leonard was the eye of the family. He was virtually doing everything for us. We can't easily forget him in our life. We can't, especially when I come home and I see his things, his boxes, and it's very painful. We are expecting that the outcome of the investigation must be made known to us. That's the first thing. And what actually happened in the school that made the staff of the school neglect in order to forestall future occurrences. When we know the outcome, things become very transparent. We will know what actually happened.
From the residents in Ahinema Kokobeng in Ashanti region, my name is Prince Apia, reporting.
7 dead with scores injured was the headline in the media exactly 3 years ago after the October 7, 2017 atomic gas explosion. My colleague Manuel Cranting tells us more in the following roving report.
Great. So, Mama V, this is exactly the place where the incident happened. 3 years ago, a gas filling station which was sited right here at Atomic Junction went up in flames, killing 7 people in the process. Many more people were injured. 3 years down the lane though, what we see now is a lorry station which has sprung up, and as you're seeing, people coming in here to board the vehicles and moving out. Quite interestingly, just across the street is another filling station, and later, as you will see, just about 100 meters to my right, there's another Total filling station, which, you know, the two of them have sandwiched this particular lorry station in the middle. And you'll remember that just after that unfortunate incident on 7th October 2017, the National Petroleum Authority instituted new regulations, as it were, to minimize the occurrence of such incidents in the country. Key amongst them was the fact that there's a need for a fire service personnel to be on site any time there's a discharge or offloading of product into any reservoir in the fuel stations. Also, they're supposed to have, in fact, they introduced new regulations on siting, and these were supposed to take the filling stations out of densely populated areas. These we have seen being, as it were, enforced to a certain level. But what are the people who were here on that fateful day? What are their sentiments? Some of them, in fact, still do work here though. And I'm going to try and speak to this man. He's a taxi driver here at the Atomic lorry station. My boss, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
I hope everything is fine.
Yes, sir.
Great. It's 3 years. Tell me what you remember from that day.
Yeah, can be and then it's actually 3 years. Yeah, it just share can see what Atomic Junction. Yeah, let me want to see.
Okay.
Yeah, some can see pa and see or Hanum. Now, mobile is a crowd. My rahupa. If you said that, you know, every permanent. You know when you're basa. The man could you my cry. Oh, can be baby. So
then Kasana okay. You say a just say Hanu, but one Kasana or Hanu, then okay.
Me pass a bus. I'm to become a cap. You come in.
Come in.
I'm a camera here. Take us too.
Okay.
I'm a cast of my FM.
Okay.
Present our Corino, who flew overhead so about you for money to pay. I'm a cast be show. I'm a one or more Gabi and I will say go or cross over Total filling station inside Akopiska. One was a shake. Yeah.
What he's telling me about a few of the things that he remembers from that fateful day, mentions how they had to escape, for their own lives, and says he drove and ran into 2 vehicles here, and recalls that unfortunate, demise of Oman FM reporter who fell off from that overhead bridge, which you see is just around here, 50 meters from here, which you see shortly. But
Manuel Kranting there with our roving report. Coming up shortly in business, International Advertising Association to promote diversity as it inducts its first African president, who is a Ghanaian. You've got details to stay.
Good morning, welcome to business. My name is Darryl Kwao. The International Advertising Association will see improvement in diversity in various activities in the industry. Now, this is one of the key objectives of the newly inducted president of the association, Joe Nete. According to him, it is time for the association to diversify many of its operations due to lessons learned from the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic globally. He made the remark in his first speech after his induction ceremony in Accra.
The advertising industry has been hard hit with the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic due to a massive cut in budget and activities by corporate bodies. According to the newly inducted president, the time has come for the industry to look beyond its traditional way of operating in order to increase its profitability. Joel Nete also promised an all-inclusive administration that will support the promotion of all gender activities.
I know it may sound mundane, but without money, many of the things we want to do and would want to see happen just can't happen. We will thus do all within our power to ensure and increase our revenues in a bid to ensure that we leave the IAA in a more financially stable state than we are today. Ladies and gentlemen, a few months ago, in the throes of the COVID-19 pandemic, our executive directors in Europe came up with a brilliant idea of organizing several webinars on various topics that kept the world engaged at the height of that difficult period. I've had occasion to congratulate them for the initiative, and I'd like to do so again today. I was honored to be invited to moderate one of those sessions on a topic that means a lot to me: diversity and inclusion. On the back of that session, I granted an interview to Horizon Suez, where I used a quote that was first shared with me by my friend, indeed our friend and VP Bharat, that says, "Diversity is being invited to the party, inclusion is being asked to dance." I find that quote particularly relevant to our own organization today, and I have owned it so much, Bharat will have a hard time convincing anybody he was the original source. More than ever, businesses, governments, non-profits, and other organizations around the world are finding it imperative to adopt a diversity and inclusion mindset in order to remain viable and relevant in today's global marketplace, and the IAA cannot be any different.
Turning to other news stories to do with World Architecture Day, and the Ghana Institute of Architects says COVID-19 has negatively impacted business. Now, at an event to commemorate the day in Accra, President of the Institute, SM Korte, said businesses of members almost came to a standstill. There's more in this report.
In an engagement with Joy Business, President of the Ghana Institute of Architects, SM Korte, debunked claims that their services are overpriced, hence not many people can engage the services of an architect.
I am aware of that, but truth be told that it's often not the reality. It's often exaggerated. The service that and the quality that you get from engaging an architect is often something that most people who have done so would attest to it. You build a building to last a lifetime. These are the products of what we do. Is not for today, it's not for 2 years or 3 years, it's for a lifetime. And perhaps it's worth the investment. Most people would probably build only once in their lifetime or may never build. If you're engaging an architect service to dream of something that would serve your purpose today, 10 years, 50 years, and even be passed on to your children, it's probably worth the investment to get an architect's input into.
So, Architect Korte further explained that COVID-19 almost collapsed the architectural industry, rendering the sector absolutely ineffective.
Well, it's been a massive setback in many regards. As you may know, construction is something, or buildings are things that people do not consider part of one's basic necessity. COVID-19 brought with it a lot of economic hardships that people had to think of how they were going to live through the next day. And when people are in such states, the last thing they will be thinking about is construction of buildings and houses and offices. So yes, there are also a lot of international partners who are involved in our real estate industry. And once there was all the travel bans, we could not go, they could not come in as well. So it's had major impacts on architecture generally.
An architectural student from the Central University, Hendrik Stanley, who presented on the topic disaster management and emergency housing, urged the government to create housing opportunities for individuals who might be displaced after a disaster.
We have a whole lot of people who are displaced and they end up creating slums, because when you leave people on their own and not really show them, oh, you can be here or you can stay here as a community, they would end up building up slums. And then we have this new slums developing, and then you hear of this going on here, and we all end up having an urban layout that is not good for the country. Now, what if we had a type of housing that could be provided for them, a community that could be created for them immediately after the disaster strikes, and they themselves could put this structure up?
And that's your business update. Sports is up next.